Hi, I'm Quinn Costello with SF Indie Fest, and I am here with Garrett Van Woudenberg, who is the writer, director, editor, and producer of Quantum Suicide. Thanks so much for joining us, Garrett. Really appreciate you sharing this film with Indie Fest.
Yeah, definitely. It's my pleasure to be here.
So, let's get into it. It's a really interesting and provocative film, and I was curious if you could kind of talk about your own interest in quantum physics and if you have a kind of background in it and how much of the kind of science in this film is rooted in real science.
Okay, so I don't have a formal scientific background, but
Mhm.
I'm a huge science fiction nerd and have been my whole life. So I remember when I was little, when I was like 3, I used to watch Mr. Dress Up at 6 p.m. and then I switched to Star Trek TNG
Mhm.
for like my 6 p.m. television slot when I was like a little kid and I didn't understand anything, but I was so attracted to that science sci-fi world. Uh, yeah, so sci-fi has just been like a big thing for me in my life, my whole life. Um, and I guess when I was in my 20s and we were working on this film and I was kind of working with like the concepts and writing it, uh, I was really interested in kind of decoding what was happening in quantum mechanics, like existentially how the universe works.
Mhm.
I wanted to know that. And I think this film in a large way was my like it mirrored my exploration of those topics. So a lot of it was right. I'm making this movie, but I want to know the answers to this. So I did a lot of research. It should very much be rooted in real scientific concepts, but without a formal background, it was just something I was really interested in trying to understand and decode at that time in my life.
And can you kind of talk about the mechanics of just like putting the pieces together and also I was wondering if you could kind of talk about your finding Andrew Rogerson, who played Cayman. Um, can you kind of talk about what you were like looking for in a lead actor?
Uh, that's a good question. So when we shot this film, I had just finished film school. So I was like a few months out of film school, and Andrew was someone who, like, he was an actor who people kind of in my cohort had been working with on some things. And once I had kind of seen Andrew's work and met him, I was like I think this is a good fit. And I mean, we did casting and we looked at other people, but there was just I don't know. There was something about Andrew that like fit this character. Although the actual human Andrew Rogerson is like not anything like this at all.
Mhm.
I don't know. He had something that worked with it, and that's the direction that I wanted to go.
And can you kind of speak to some of the challenge because he has to carry so much of the film, you know, in these scenes of him just on his own and stuff. Can you kind of speak to some of the kind of challenges of directing a solo actor and what your kind of dynamics were like?
Yeah, I mean, I think in retrospect, like having made this movie and learned some things, it is so much more difficult to to have scenes that just have an actor or an actor and a computer to make that like dramatic and interesting and to have that flow. You're not doing yourself any favors as the writer director to put yourself in those situations. Like you'd be
Mhm.
much better off having dialogue, having multiple characters because it just flows and it's easy. But now when I watch other people's films and you see all those scenes where it's just the one character by themselves or the character sitting at their computer and when it captures you and it works, you're like, wow, I know how challenging that is to
Mhm.
make that work. Um, but I mean, working with Andrew, like his instincts were to give you more and go bigger most of the time. And I like what I wanted from this character was always just like we got to bring it down. It's got to be pretty stone-faced. We don't want, we don't want like he's not an emotive uh he's not giving so much. Uh and I want it to be subtle and be like slight the
Mhm.
things that we see inside him. But yeah, it's certainly a challenging thing, and you build a lot of it in editing. Like you do a lot of it with pacing and stuff you do after the
Mhm.
fact, but it's certainly more work to make it work.
And then can you kind of talk about what your vision was for the relationship between him and his wife, and how you wanted, it seemed like this was bringing out a different side of his character that was a lot more kind of grounded and everything. And so, what was, as the director, when you were working with them as a couple, what were you kind of trying to steer them towards in terms of the depth that that relationship was adding to the film?
Yeah, because like if it was just this crazy obsessed scientist locked in his laboratory, it
Excuse me.
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't like, I don't know, it doesn't hold so much weight for people. Like
Yeah.
it needs a human element. Like it definitely needed that part of the story to make it real and make it interesting. Um, yeah. Uh, and then I don't know. I wanted like we changed the story as we went, and there were
Hmm.
certainly things where we did not like it wasn't in the original script, but then as we're editing and working on it, we're like, oh, you know what? Like there's pieces here that are missing. And we would kind of write the film as we went, and we added new scenes and we reshot stuff. And certainly a part of that was humanizing Cayman and adding more of the story between them. Because my original concept for this film, it wasn't even going to be a feature. It was a short film, and it was very much about like the quantum suicide experiment, but it was pretty inscrutable. Like it didn't really make sense. It didn't have a greater narrative arc. And then once we
Hmm.
decided to make it a feature, that's when we got to get into those other relationships and humanizing the character.
And this question of a quantum suicide is something that's rooted in like a genuine kind of what, I don't know what you would say, like a thought experiment, right?
Yeah, certainly.
Uh,
Quantum suicide is a real thought experiment.
yeah,
So it's like Schrodinger's cat.
yeah.
Thought experiments are not things that you're supposed to actually do. It's not an actual
Hmm.
experiment, but it's
Yeah.
it's a it's basically like a narrative device to explain a concept that would be difficult to understand. So we use thought experiments in these crazy things in quantum mechanics to explain how something would work, not
And
that it's
how
something
did
you should do, but something how it would happen.
you first kind of encounter this particular thought experiment, and how did it kind of lead you on this path?
So when I was in university before I went to film school, one day one of our friends, Carrie Friesen, was like, "Hey, have you guys heard about quantum suicide? Have you heard about this quantum suicide thing?" And and none of us had. And then he explained it because we were just these nerdy kids who thought this stuff was cool.
Mhm.
Uh, and yeah, everyone laughed and was like, "Oh yeah, that's crazy, Carrie. What a crazy idea." But but I was like, I'm gonna make this into a movie. Like
Mhm.
there's a movie there one day. Yeah, and that was before film school. That was years before I started
Yeah.
working on this. But I always had that idea in my mind, that this would be like there was potential there for something.
And then can you kind of like take me through a little bit the how you actually kind of pulled it off? I know that these, independent films are often done with, you have to be really resourceful and kind of savvy in how you pull these things together. How did you kind of make it all happen? And can you just tell me a little bit more about the production experience?
So we didn't have like we shot this right out of film school. Um and I don't think we really knew the scope of what we were getting into at the time. Like we just were like, I had a short film script, and we were building the lab in my garage. So we were just
Hmm.
getting ready to shoot the short. And then when my friend Shane Morgan came on as our producer, I like basically the first thing I remember him saying was like, why don't we make it a feature?
Hmm.
And I didn't understand the like what that meant, like how how deep that would end up taking us. But he convinced me, and then very quickly we're like, okay, now this is going to be a feature film, and I'm going to write a new script. We already
Hmm.
have the set in the garage, and now we're going to make this. But we didn't have like a complete budget. We didn't have a whole plan. We were just like, we're gonna go. Like we're gonna we're
Hmm.
gonna start, and we're gonna go, and we're gonna figure it out. Which is not a smart way to make a film. But I think it is a way that indie films like this get made, because once you understand how much work it is to make a movie, you might not want to jump into that unless you have all the stuff in place that it wasn't possible to get in place for your first film. Um, yeah, and then about production, we shot the first like that summer. We shot basically like 3 months all summer, and we like, I mean, I was working just on the film at the time, but
Hmm.
all the crew were working, or they were still in film school. So we would shoot on Friday night, and then we'd shoot all day Saturday, and we shoot all day Sunday, and we did that, all summer to finish principal photography. So a lot of our crew really like gave up their summer, that one summer, to be able to shoot this, because everyone had
Hmm.
stuff to do during the week, and then Friday through Sunday, like it was just quantum.
And like, because the film is so kind of is lives within these parameters of one person in this kind of crazy, shed where he's building building this world. Um, a lot of the tension comes in the editing and the sound design, and that's where like the pace is really being ratcheted up and stuff. And so, can you kind of talk about like that process of getting that right? And like, was it just you sitting alone in a room, like wrestling with the footage and reckoning with it, or like how were you kind of like checking yourself to make sure that you were getting that right? Because it's kind of, it does have this real kind of it does keep you at this very kind of high level of intensity for a lot of it.
Yeah. I mean, the film was certainly built in editing,
Yeah.
and I think that's partly a function of the fact like we didn't have like a very dialed in script. We didn't have enough time. And something I
Hmm.
would change, like if I were doing this over again, like the script would have been way tighter. We would have been much more purposeful with all our decisions in production. But yeah, it was still very early for me, and I didn't really know so much about what I was doing when I was directing, principal photography. So we shot a lot, like a lot, and a lot of it didn't make it into the film, and a lot of it got changed later. But we like the film was built in editing for sure,
Hmm.
and it's like, I mean, thank God for nonlinear editing and for computers, because it would be impossible to make to have
Hmm.
successfully made this movie otherwise. If we were shooting film and physically cutting it, like it wouldn't have worked, because it's like it all got dialed in post afterwards. Um, but I mean, a lot of that just takes time and feel like you just cut it and watch it and
Hmm.
work on it. And I mean, a lot of that is me in a dark room, but it's me with Shane.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's just, whoever your tight like creative group is, and just kind of continuing to work on it. But I mean, I certainly a lot got changed in the
Hmm.
process. Like that first year, like we shot in the summer, and then I cut in the winter, and then we realized there was stuff there was stuff we didn't succeed at. So there were scenes that were like, we need to reshoot this. And there was stuff that was missing. Like there were obviously holes in the story. Um, and then, we'd write new scenes. And then, so the next summer, the year afterwards, we did like a few weeks of reshoots. And that was all like pretty well planned because at that point we
Hmm.
like a cut of the movie and we knew what we were filling in or what we were gonna do better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's quite an achievement to have like pulled this thing off and to have this kind of team of people who believe in your vision and help you be able to kind of realize it, the sacrifice that it takes. So kudos to you for pulling
Yeah,
that
thank
off.
you.
And do you plan future projects? Like, what have you taken from this experience? And like, do you think you'll kind of continue on with some of these themes that you were thinking about with this film, or are you gonna switch over to period drama or something like that?
No, I very much am obsessed with science fiction, and
Yeah,
I only intend to make more science fiction.
yeah,
Um, but this movie was very much a movie we could make. Like it was a movie you could
hmm,
make for
yeah,
for basically no money in your garage. Um, so hopefully, and it seems like this is the case, we now have like the ability to get financing to make bigger movies.
hmm,
Um, and it's not going to be three characters, in a really tight space in the future. But I'm so I have three projects I'm working on right now. One of them I think I will direct, or I hope I would direct. Um, and it's a bigger story than this, but it's still independent sci-fi. Um, and I don't know. So these three projects, two of them are films, one of them is a television series. And if I think about Quantum Suicide and these other two films, for me they are kind of like a I don't know what that's called. It's a trilogy, but it's not actually a trilogy.
hmm,
They're thematic. It's a thematic trilogy.
hmm,
Um, Quantum Suicide is about quantum mechanics. Um, the second film is about time travel, and the third film is about relativity.
hmm.
And they're just three ideas in science that I think are really interesting and have this dramatic potential, and aren't normally done so well when Hollywood tries to make movies about this stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's challenging, and it's also like it's cool to see some of these concepts kind of reckon with in a way that is, it's dynamic, it looks good, it has but like it's done with very kind of limited resources, you know what I mean? And so yeah, it's great to see that you were able to do this, and really look forward to sharing it with the audiences in San Francisco in person. And also as independent film audience and stuff, how can people help spread the word and let other people in the world know about this film?
Um, I would love any if people like it, if people want to share it. I would love for people to share it on social media to,
Hmm.
you know, get the word out about it. Um, we are in like late talks with the distributor that we're gonna go with. So it
Hmm.
looks like it'll come out in the summer of this year as well. So we'll have
Cool.
more information if you're following us on our socials, kind of leading up to that. And then we're gonna do like a bigger like media push around that time because that's like you want people to know about it, but they need to be able to do something. So yeah, it looks like it's gonna be coming out in the summer, and yeah, I would love for people to know about it then when it's possible for them to see it.
Yeah, great. All right, well, everybody spread the word, and thank you so much for bringing this film to IndieFest.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.